Yeah, I lived in Newtonville, which was like right along the highway, and right next to Nonantum, which was all those Irish and Italian kids. And so that's who I went to junior high school with, and mostly high school. But there was a lot of really terrifying kids. There's a lot of scary kids.
Well, blue-collar communities, like I was in Upper Falls.
Yeah.
In Newton, Upper Falls, there was a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
Everybody would hang out by Echo Bridge. You remember Echo Bridge?
Yeah, sure.
That's where my house was.
Okay.
My house was right next to Echo Bridge.
Yeah, Newton had a lot of like Cabot. I went to Cabot School, elementary school, and Cabot Park was a hang. And to cross Cabot Park, sometimes you'd get these guys that would just converge on you, and they would play games with you, and you didn't know what was going on. Right. Like, hey, kid, come here. And then all of a sudden you're in the middle of the park, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
I remember once as kids, he said he had $100 bill for some reason, and he said, we're going to play this game, and they're all surrounding me, and he puts the $100 bill on my hand, and he gives me a cigarette, and he says, if you can burn a hole in his head all the way through, I'll give you the $100 bill. I'm like, and I was like, I don't want to do it. And
Jesus Christ.
No, try it. And I was trying to do it, and it hurt like fuck. And I don't remember how that ended. Like, I just remember that terrifying, and they're all staring at me. And one time, some kids had a cup of puke. It was like a coffee cup with puke. And he said, can you drink this whole thing? If you drink this whole thing, we'll give you a beer. That was that thing.
Oh, God. Drink the puke and I'll give you a beer.
Yeah. These guys just scared me. And then when I grew up, I hung out with those kids and would smoke cigarettes. That's where I learned to smoke cigarettes in that park. And I drank my first beer in that park. But there was a kid named Mike who was the toughest kid in Newton. He was just a fucking terrifying person. And there was one point where this kid named David Russell, his family lived in Boston. Remember, I don't know if you guys had Metco kids, the kids that were bused from Boston into our schools. All black kids from Boston who were bused into our school system. It wasn't part of that bossing Boston thing. It was out to the suburbs. Right. And these were kids that got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to school. You know, they were living a particular life and coming out to this suburb. And some of them were my friends. One of them was Ronnie DeVoe of Belle Biv DeVoe.
No shit.
Yeah, I went to high school with him.
Wow.
And I knew him since like junior high school through high school. He was a nice kid. And when he was in first edition or new edition, they used to come get him in a limousine. And people would shout racist shit at the Bobby Brown. All these guys would be in the limousine in high school. It was so racist. It was so crazy. Yes.
Whoa.
So David Russell was a Medco kid, and his family's house burnt down in Boston. And a family in Newton, actually friends of mine, they had a rental unit, and they let the Russells live there. So it was like there's a black family living in Newtonville. It's a big deal. And everyone was into, because it was all liberal teachers. Everybody was into, like, we're hosting this family because they lost their home. So all of a sudden, David Russell's living in Newton. He's not just going to school there. And one day, Mike and his group confront David Russell in the park, and they go, hey, listen, we're really happy you're here. We want to show you this bench right here. This is your bench. And they had literally painted it black. And they painted one of the swings black. They said, this is the Russell swing. This is the Russell bench. You can use them anytime you want.
Whoa.
And I remember I heard that story, and I went to the park that day, and there was a black bench and a black swing. And they were there. I mean, I remember I went back when I was in my 20s, and it was still a little
kind of black.
Paint. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was Newton, Massachusetts. It's crazy.
Kids were latchkey kids back then.
Yeah.
Remember those days? You would just like...
Oh, your parents are
They
work.
just let you out.
There's no parents.
Yeah.
They come home. My mom would come. I was raised by a single mom. She had 4 kids and worked. So she'd come home at 7:30, 8 o'clock, rush hour traffic, just exhausted.
Yeah.
But I'd come home, make my own lunch, and often dinner.
Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes I'd make something for my mom, you know.
Yeah.
And, home alone all day.
All day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out on the streets.
Nobody knew where you were. There was no cell phones. You just wandered around.
Yep.
And just hope you didn't die.
Yeah.
Because every now and then someone would die. Someone would die
kids
in a
would
drunk
die.
driving accident or something.
I think every year in my high school there would be a page in the yearbook for the kid that got killed in drunk driving.
Yeah, something. There was always something like that.
My best friend Ian, his sister Claire, was in a drunk driving accident where somebody died and half her face was paralyzed still today. She was just, yeah, it was a fucked up time.
Well, it's just those. I mean, getting through that though is like a very unusual education in human beings and development and like why people do the things they do and why they say the things they do, and why they're trying out different kinds of behaviors and. You know, and bullies and people who are pacifists and people who get bullied and you see it ruin their lives. And, you know, it can ruin your fucking life, man. I really feel for people who get bullied, because if you get bullied in high school and you just decide that's who I am, I'm just this fucking loser, I'm just going to hide. And then you hide in your apartment and you hide in your house and you hide at your job, and then like your life is hiding now because somebody fucked with you and somebody.
Well, so you were very badly hurt when you were extremely vulnerable.
Exactly.
And you're probably hurt because you already were vulnerable. You already were unsure of yourself for a million different reasons.
Yeah.
And so you never really recover from that, I don't think. It's
can.
I mean, it doesn't mean it destroys your life, but it's in your life. All the things that happen to you that are horrible, like unbelievable, they just stay with you. They just become part of you. You don't swap it out. You don't clean it out. It doesn't go away. It just stays in you.
You can get over it.
You can get over it. You can integrate it.
Yeah.
It can help you understand what's happening to other people. It can help you even understand people that hurt people.
Yeah.
Like when you get really hurt by people, you have two choices. You can decide to collapse under it and say, I'm too weak to live in this world. Or you can decide to hate them, which is another very corrosive thing. You can just decide that they're shit. They're not human. Or you can look at them and go, why did this person do this to me? And
they've always been abused.
Yeah, and then you go, okay. And then you get an insight that people don't get without that kind of experience. And then you have a self-reliance because you go, I got through it. I did it. I got through it. I think every extreme experience, bad and good, is food. You know, it's good.
It has the potential for a learning experience. Yeah.
Potential. Yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you what you turn it into.
Yeah, like all those stories about like me being bullied and thrown around, like that's what led me to get into martial arts. If it wasn't for that, I probably never would have done it, and I never would have been the person that I am.
Sure.
But all that came out of bad feelings, like terrible feel, like just moving to town. So I was 14. I just moved there. I lived in Jamaica Plain before that, and then we moved to
I didn't know
Newton.
that.
Yeah.
Well, how old were you when you moved from there?
I lived in Jamaica Plain for, I guess, a year and a half or so. My parents were like, this is way too dangerous. We got to get them out of there.
Still probably.
It was sketchy.